Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Feed and Focus for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. Today I have a treat for you. And by the way, guys, my name is Angela Sharina. I'm a certified health, nutrition, brain performance coach, and just someone with a lot of passion for helping you to use nutrition, lifestyle, workspace, live space design, all based on neuroscience research to feel, do, and look your absolute best. And I couldn't be more pumped about today's guest, Adi Cohen, who is an architect, a digital nomad, and Adi, we are so aligned in what we are trying to do. I help to bring you tools to feel, do, and look your absolute best, and Adi does the same, but through architecture. Did you know you could do that? That the space where you choose to live, to do your work, to spend big part of your life or any part of your life, it does change who you are and what work you produce. Of course, on this podcast, we're gonna talk about with Adi how travels inspire creativity and your work and how it changes you. We'll also gonna talk a lot about how can you be an architect or maybe a similar profession that you wouldn't usually think as a digital nomad profession that is possible. How can you be an architect and a digital nomad? Adi worked everywhere, it seems, from Israel to Japan to everywhere in between. So you're going to learn how she does it. You're also going to learn why every space, why every design is an invitation. It's my favorite quote from the conversation with Adi. Each design, each space is an invitation. Each changes what you do, what decisions you make. We're going to talk more about on this podcast, and probably after this podcast episode, you're going to look at your working space, at your living space a little bit differently, with a little bit more attention, and hopefully making different choices, making more aware choices of the places where you choose to spend your time, because it does affect your mind, your health, your life, your work. On this podcast, we're going to talk about, obviously, Adi's travels. We're also going to talk about unorthodox, unusual health advice that connects architecture, what Adi does for a living, and well-being and your health. We're going to talk about one of the, I think, most underestimated marketing of your work strategy that Adi called Go Talk to Strangers. You're going to learn why you can use it, why you must use it in your work, and why it might be the most powerful marketing and finding client strategy that you've come across. And especially in our digital world, it can be the uncommon thing that can bring you the uncommon results. I think the other important aspect that I want to highlight here is this concept of you don't have to do it alone. And if you have a big dream, a big project that seems like it's above your pay grade, meaning you might not have all the skills, not all the knowledge, with Adi, we're going to talk why it's okay and how you can still do it today, do it now, without you personally having all the expertise and all the knowledge. So this conversation, it's packed with work, life, travel, wisdom that is very practical. Also, you're going to learn when you should come to Germany to have the best experience and why. So we're going to go to all the different places, and it's an amazing conversation. We're going to have laughs. We're also going to talk about nutrition strategies. And yes, it's a very, very fascinating, useful, and inspiring conversation that you don't want to miss. So stay tuned, and without further ado, please enjoy. Adi, welcome to Feed and Focus for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. So happy to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Angela. It's really great to be here today. Thanks again for the invite.
Yes, you have one of the professions that I don't often encounter among digital nomads. In fact, some of my friends think that it's impossible to do what you do and be a digital nomad, right? So maybe let's start with your journey, what you do, where you are. So where are you connecting from?
Today, I'm calling from Berlin, Germany. It is summer here and it's absolutely beautiful. The weather is fantastic.
I've never been, what would you say, like for listeners who've never been to Berlin, what would you say, like maybe the most fascinating things or the things that you love the most, maybe why people should go there and check it out?
So I guess the first thing would be come during summer. That's what I was instructed to do because all my Berliner friends are like, Berlin is such a great city. In the summer, don't come during winter. Everyone is depressed and cranky. But if you come during summer, it's amazing. And it is like everyone is outside. There's so many events. Just yesterday, we went to the Feld, which is like used to be an airport. And now it's a huge field that is not abandoned, but like untouched in the center of the city. And you can see people roller skating or, yesterday there was a guy with a speaker who decided to do a party. And it's just incredible to see 200 people dancing just like this on a Tuesday evening, just because they can. So yeah,
that's amazing. So I guess outdoor events, that what Berlin is known for. I've never been again, so I don't know.
So
anything
during
else?
Summer?
Okay, yeah. Anything else that comes to mind about Berlin?
So Berlin, actually, it's quite different from other cities because the city does not have a center. It's like most cities, they develop around the center and then you have the suburbs. But in Berlin, it's basically a collection of villages, Kiez, as they call it in German. So choose wisely where you're going to stay because it's really each part of the city has a different character and a different vibe. So it's also nice to move around. I already been to 2 different neighborhoods, which was quite fun to explore. And if you can, get a bicycle because it's really nice to explore this way. The infrastructure for riding bicycles here is incredible. It's very, very friendly.
I think a lot of European cities move this way to more like bicycle encouragement of people to use bicycles more than cars, etc.
Yes.
Yeah. So it actually, I don't know, for some reason it reminds me of New York. Like, it kind of like has a center, but also it has all the boroughs and people love each for each own, things. And you kind of like choose the one that best fits, I don't know, your soul, your mindset. So yeah, definitely on my list. I've been to Switzerland. I stayed there for like 6 months and in Zurich, and it's German part. And a lot of people from Germany go there. Have you been?
Amazing. No, I haven't been yet. No, but I guess, in a way, I can understand why Berlin reminds you of New York because there's so many immigrants, expats, foreigners here. It really feels multicultural, and that's another thing that makes this city so unique. It's my first time here, so I'm still exploring, but I'll get back to you on that later.
Yes, I think it's digital nomad life is all about that exploration. Would you say, that exploration and digital nomad lifestyle helps in that, because you get to explore so much to what you do, to maybe get inspired by the new things you see, cultural and otherwise?
Oh my God, yes, absolutely, 100%. As a creative, I'm an architect. I don't know if the listeners know that. As a creative, it always seemed a bit of an absurd to me to be locked away, kept away from the work, from the world, or in an office, right? It's like living the same day over and over again, having this routine life in front of a screen under the fluorescent light, just feels very, very stagnant. And when you travel the world, there's different aspects to it. The first one is the human aspect, right? You get to meet so many different people with so many different lifestyles and businesses and insights. And it's endless. And the scope of what we think it's possible in the world completely changed when you leave your country, when you leave your comfort zone and you meet different people who are doing different things. But also as a creative, as an architect, to be able to be, I always say that if I wasn't an architect, I would have been an anthropologist, because I just love different cultures and, tribes and continents. I just like go to rural places and see what, how different life can be in different places. So as an architect, to be able to tap into that, to tap into different materials and ancient wisdom and colors and textures is just so enriching. Probably the best decision I ever made.
And about the decision, so you already mentioned that you are an architect. I have friends who are architects, and they actually think that it's impossible to be a digital nomad and work as an architect, because you have to kind of build your portfolio. And a lot of times you have to work with places, in person, where you stay, right? And so that doesn't give you like that much flexibility, especially maybe if your projects are more long term. So maybe tell our listeners more about your journey as an architect and also as a digital nomad. How do you do this?
Yeah, I know it's quite unusual, and I get this question all the time, and I'm really, really happy that you asked that, because I do want to share. So for me, like all good things that happen by coincidence, my own personal journey started in a crisis.
Yeah, tell us about a little bit about
that. That's the juicy part. Yeah. So I grew up in Israel. And I did the whole, the normal life path where you go to university and then you get a job and all of that. And I used to have a very ordinary life. I had a partner. I was working full time in a firm, and I kept feeling like I'm not satisfied. And I didn't know why, right? I had everything that supposedly you're supposed to be happy with in adult life. I was a partner at a firm. I was in a beautiful, loving relationship, but I felt like I kept asking myself, is that all there is? Is that all there is? Is this what life is about? Am I supposed to be happy with this for the next 40 years? I see my father has been working for the same firm for the past 40 years. And I think he looks completely happy. Why? What's wrong with me? Am I not hardworking enough? Am I getting bored too easily? What is it about this life that is not satisfying to me? But I kept having this feeling that I'm living on 10% of what I could be, but I didn't know exactly how or what can I change. And then when me and my life partner, we decided to split, and then a very good friend of mine passed away from cancer. I just decided that I'm not going to wait until I'm retired to love Monday morning, So I was moving a few apartments, and every time that I, carried my belongings ups and down the stairs, and I just started hating my stuff, just thinking to myself, why do I have all of those things? Do I really need that, actually? There was like 3 weeks between apartments that I lived out of my car and stayed in friends' houses and, just hopped around. And I realized that I need very little, actually, to live. And, there was this moment when I realized that I'm allowed to go crazy. I'm allowed to do whatever I want right now and not what I'm expected to be doing. And that was for me to sell all my belongings and get a one-way ticket to Japan.
Oh my God.
This is how such a move. I always wanted to be in Japan, and I just couldn't imagine having an apartment to go back to. I just wanted to break free and to see what else. I didn't know what will I do. I just know back at the time what I don't want to do, how I don't want to live. And that was like a big mystery to me and a big leap of faith, because obviously I spent, so much time in architecture training. It's super long. And then you have an internship. And I was a partner. I just got a new project to design my father's synagogue, which is something that we talked about for years. And all of a sudden, in his words, I was throwing my life away.
Yeah. So familiar, I think for so many nomads, such a familiar phrase.
Oh my God, yes. And he couldn't sleep at night, he was super worried. He thought I'm going crazy, but I just knew that I have to see what else is out there, even if it means that I have to give up my identity as an architect. But, as later we'll find out. Okay, so I went to Japan and I started traveling around. I got obsessed with traditional Japanese houses. It didn't even make sense at the time because I was not going to be an architect anymore, right? But I just started visiting so many the old traditional houses. I was fascinated by the way that they are designed and integrated with the garden and with nature and the details.
By the way, I love Japan. I'm a Japanophile, has been for years.
Oh my God. So you know what I'm talking about, right? They have this like timeless quality in those spaces. And I kept feeling drawn to it. So I allowed myself to do that. And then after a while, I met a couple who just bought a hotel. And I was still working on some of the projects that I had in Israel, and they realized that I'm an architect. And they asked me if I want to help them with the design of the hotel, if I'm going to do a consulting, if I don't mind to have a look at this hotel that they bought and I don't know what to do because something about the lobby is not working. And I said, sure, yeah, let's go. And I ended up helping them to do a redesign to this hotel. I thought it's just a nice coincidence. But then again, after a few months, I was couch surfing somewhere else in Japan. And my host asked me to do a consulting session for them for a former, there was like this amazing seafront former hospital building that was completely abandoned, like 3,000 square meters empty. And he and his partners, they wanted to develop it and they wanted to convince the city hall to do something with this building, to transform it into a community space. So when he discovered that I'm an architect, say, "Oh, could you please do this consulting for us? And maybe we'll even put it on a video and show it at our presentation." So that happened. And so I was like, wait, is it even possible for me to travel and use my skills as an architect? And then when it happened again and again, I just started doing what I can to help this happen, which was to build a website, to offer my services, to talk about it more. And this is how I roll until today. So obviously it changed the scale, and now I'm being invited to places. But it all really started with putting yourself out there, knowing what the skills that you can share remotely, right? So now we're going to talk a little bit about the model that I work in. Okay, so we specialize. So my studio is called The New Movement, and it's completely location independent, but we specialize in human-centered design and wellness architecture, and how the built environment really affects our well-being and the way that we're
so amazing.
Oh my God, like our physical, mental health is so connected to the places that we live in, what you see when you open the window, which materials you interact with. So once we have this expertise, we can do mostly concept development. Like we're really interested in how ideas transform into spaces. Well, how does it feel like to be in a certain place? And how can we create those kind of places that people remember, that they feel drawn to, that they feel happy and rested when they walk in the door?
Sorry to interrupt. I just got goosebumps because, I always, as a brain coach, tell people, like, the space where you are, that's going to change what you do, how you feel, the colors, the light, etc. Don't take it lightly. It's so amazing that you do this kind of architecture, tell us more.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my mission on this planet. And this is the reason I wanted to become an architect in the first place, right? Because architecture is more than having a roof over your head. It's about helping people thrive. It's about creating places where people feel amazing. We all know that feeling when you walk into a place and it just clicks. You just think to yourself, "Oh, I wish I could live here. Oh, I love it here." Why? What makes a place something that we are magnetically drawn to. Please go ahead.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add that when you create a space, you also create the behavior that you want to promote. Like if you put, certain spaces to sit or to look at, that's what people are going to do. And that's going to change their life every day, right? That's what I also love about architecture. I think it's so powerful. You're so right.
Exactly. Each design is an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the decisions we don't do in our conscious mind. We do it with our bodies, with our subconscious. We can call it a gut feeling or an intuition, but actually it's our senses. So whenever you walk into a supermarket and you immediately turn right because you're overwhelmed and you need to retreat, this is like evolutionary forces in you that makes you behave a certain way. So when we want to manipulate people into buying things they don't need, we know how to use that. But what if we use this for good?
Yes.
Right?
So
what if we use that
right.
as a tool to really make people feel better and happier? And like, it's all science-based. We have all the studies. Why aren't we using it?
Exactly. And what most importantly, do that. Like, if you want to have healthy people, just create the spaces, the environment to prime, to kind of like push them a little bit, nudge into the direction that's the action that you want them to take, right? So amazing.
Exactly. Because each design is an invitation. So when we know how we want people to behave in a place, then we can create the right invitations for them through the space, through the materials and the furniture and the layouts to help them behave a certain way.
Yeah, and I'm also making notes, just to let you know when I look down.
Yeah. I do it all the time. That's
yes.
That's fine. So you're in a good company.
Yeah. Please continue. Now you developed your niche, right? And how do you find, I guess, also work and clients and projects? I think a lot of, aspiring digital nomads / architects might think about that. How do you make yourself known to the world?
Again, that like I'm it's not like I have a formula that I can share. I can only share from my own experience, but I also have a podcast. And the podcast is called Go Out and Talk to Strangers. Because this is the number one advice that I find myself giving other people, architects, or like people who want to change their lifestyle. Like, you have to go to places you don't normally go to and start talking to people. Because this is where the magic happens. My first client ever, we met in an elevator before I even knew what an elevator pitch was. We just started talking. Then we said, okay, we already reached the ground floor. Like, shall we have coffee? Yeah, we had coffee. And then we had another coffee. And then he was bidding on this land and he got it. And he was thinking between me, I was on my 5th year of architecture school, and another architect more experienced. And he just told me, when I was freshly out of university, when I graduated, everyone wanted me to have experience in order to hire me. But how am I supposed to get experience if no one will hire me for my first job? Yeah. And he said, and then someone took a chance on me and gave me my first job. And I thought to myself that one day I'm going to do it for someone else, and I want to do it for you. I want to pay it forward, and I want you to build my house, even though you don't have any real life experience yet. I was just working at a firm back then, just as a student. But that's this is the kind of things that happens when you put yourself out there, and that's why I think that office life is the way it is today is just old news. Even people who actually want to go to an office and interact with other people, it's much better to go to a co-working space and have a multidisciplinary conversation instead of just talking to your colleagues or the people that you actually know what you're doing, because this is how we open our mind. How do I find my clients? It started in elevators, couch surfing, cafes. Once met a client in an Oktoberfest party. And then because there's like, you also have to do the work. You have to put yourself out there and to create an online presence and make people aware of who you are and how can you serve them, how can you help them. So the podcast has been great for that, but also just being part of this tribe of digital nomads, global citizens, change makers, to be active, to go to conferences, to talk to people. This is how people know who you are.
Yes. And I think,
day,
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, at the end of the day, I don't want to work with people who Googled architect. I want to work with people where we have shared values, or that we have similar ideas of how we want to live our lives. And then we are hanging out in the same circles. And think about it, the ecosystem.
I think that's the best, way to find people to work with or to have any sorts of relationships with, right? You meet them because you both went somewhere, because you both have similar values, right?
Yes.
And then a lot of things in your interaction would come naturally because you think about the same things, you have similar experiences, right? And I think also when you do it like you do, and I also a fan of this approach, even though sometimes I get stuck in my head and all sorts of techniques to get known and spread my message. But I think when you do it this way, things that are supposed to come to you, they come to you naturally through people, to certain events, certain places, right? And that's kind of when your life path, from my experience, started getting shaped in a way it's supposed to be shaped in, and it feels easier, right? Instead of feels like you pushing something up the hill.
Absolutely. Go to events that you're interested in, even volunteer with, there's so many communities and NGOs that are looking for architecture to build community centers. They don't have big budgets, but they would love to have someone to help them. So I always say, just find your passions, find within architecture what you're passionate about, and then try and see who can you serve. And this is how we start. This is just how it goes. But in terms of the model, right, we said that architects, obviously my license applies only in Israel. So what do I do when I'm designing a project in Portugal or Guatemala or Japan, or what do I do? So the key is collaboration. The key is co-creation. So if you look at the biggest firms in the world, they have this model, right? They're doing concept development, they're doing the actual design, and then they collaborate with the local firm that execute and supervise. So this is exactly what we do at the New Movement. We do concept development, and then we collaborate with local architects. We also want to have the input of the local architects, not only because of building codes and regulations, but also because of their own experience living in this country, the materials they can recommend, the techniques they can recommend, their own ecosystem and network that we can do the best we can in order to create the best possible project for the client. In the end of the day, this is the purpose. We're here to serve people. We're not here to be on this ego trip of, I decide this and that. It's not about that. We're here to serve human beings. We're here to make a world a better place.
Yeah. And, a couple of things. I also believe that the world is more, it has more than enough opportunities for everyone, and all of us would benefit from collaborations, right? The more we collaborate, the more opportunities, the more energy we create, and the more we get to do our work. So I totally agree with you on that, And the second thing, I actually never thought about that aspect of regulations because, architecture is, regulated field, and you probably, have to jump through a lot of hoops to even start working on a project. And so, you mentioned that collaboration aspect. So, for architects who are listening, so do they sign contracts on your part, or, you somewhere in the contract? Like, how does it happen? Just again, for people who might be considering that path.
So clearly, you cannot be legally, the one who signs the permit to be the legal representative of a project in a country where you're not licensed. So in a way, you're becoming a consultant to consult how the design is going to look like. But then the local firm is the one who has the right insurance and have the right documents and everything to actually execute the project.
Okay, I see. Yeah, now it makes sense.
And of course, we'll have our agreement and also agreement with the client and copyrights and all of that. This is a lot of fun, as you can imagine.
I'm sure you love it.
Oh my God, it's my favorite part of each project, but it's important,
Yeah.
It's not it's basically contracts or agreements it's just the way that it sounds. It's agreements. It's what we agree about to create clarity. And once everything is well defined, that you can just enjoy working together, and you don't have to worry about different scenarios because it's all in the contract.
Yeah. So yeah, that's amazing. I think for a lot of architects who want to also be digital nomads, like they can now see the way, into that, maintaining this lifestyle or creating it. Are there any other aspects of work maybe that you'd like to mention that I wouldn't think about just because I'm not in the field, that you might think is useful for other architects who are listening? Who want
Sure. Absolutely. So, many people, I get a lot of emails and messages on Instagram of architecture students that it's really warms my heart. One of them wrote me, I was about to drop out of school, and then I watched your YouTube video and I decided that I am going to follow through with this, and I'm going to find my way of doing things. And it completely blew my mind to receive this message. But many of them are a bit impatient. Like I don't see myself doing office life, and it is essential to be mentored for a while, to be part of a firm, to understand how things work. Okay. So I know how much you want to be out there and you want to do your own thing, but it is crucial to be mentored and to have experience and to work for a few years at a firm. But there's also, for everything that we do in life, there is an active and a passive way of doing so. So you can sit and just do whatever task you're being given, and that's it, and be bored out of your mind. But you can also be playful and curious and ask as many questions as possible, and ask to join meetings and go on site. And when you're on site, ask all the questions that you can ask, because you're going to learn so much. By being active, we're getting so much knowledge, so much more knowledge, and just if we're just doing what we're told. And also, I think that like whatever firms you're working for, they're going to appreciate it more. They're going to see your potential. They're going to see your curiosity and also reward you for that. So it is really important to work for a few years before you're going to go in your own way and just, open your own practice, because the real world and what we're being taught in the academic world is quite different. And it is only responsible for your clients that you'll get their appropriate experience. If you don't think you can do that, if you really can't do it, there are other things that are very similar to architecture that you could be doing, like 3D renderings, or to create beautiful drawings for other architects as a freelancers on one of the platforms. Sure, you can do that, but you will always be limited to doing only that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And again, just because very often I'm not in the field and I'm not, I don't know the questions to even ask to
That's a great question. Yeah,
to give the listeners like the best experience and the most value, and also some valuable insights. What you said reminds me of my work as a coach. Now I'm transitioning to corporate coaching. And it's kind of challenging for me because I've never worked in the corporate world. And sometimes I wish maybe if I had like a couple of years of experience, I would understand this a little bit better. So now I have to not have to, I actually enjoy it, but still I need the collaboration with people who actually spend quite some time in this world to even understand like what language to speak and how to serve the people who work for companies better, right? So what you mentioned, it's so important because, you can travel the world and do architecture the way you do it because you had that experience and you know how things work, right? And you can do them, like a lot of them, remotely. It's, I think, very valuable advice. And you're right. There are also many ways, I guess, to shape that journey depending on what your priorities and values are. And, I also want to add that you don't have to do it in the order that I think somebody else told you should, right? Like what you said, you got to have experience with firms. Well, maybe you want to travel the world at first and do some other project that you can do remotely and then get back to, getting that experience. Like one of my friends actually is doing right now. So I think.
Of course, you can decide that you're going to sit in Thailand or somewhere where cost of living is not so expensive and just do competitions until you win one. And then when you get a competition, when you already have a project and this is for everyone who's listening, if you have a project with a paying client, but you don't have the right experience to execute it, always reach out to other architects or to me or to anyone else and say, hey, I have this project. Would you like to collaborate on it? That's it. Right? You can have your own private mentor. Once you have a project already, it's a completely different, how do you call that? It's like a completely different situation, right? Because you're the one bringing work and value. And then you can say, what are the terms? You know, I want to be here 3 days a week. The rest of the time, I want to be, I don't know, hiking or whatever. And you can define how you're going to work together.
Such also a valuable point. You know, sometimes people, I think, don't dream big enough or don't go for bigger projects because they think, well, I got to know everything and I got to be the person who's doing all the work with all the knowledge already.
Yeah.
But no, you know, you can actually start where you are. And if you miss some knowledge, you can collaborate with other people. You can ask for help, right? And you can still develop and get all the experience. Such a valuable, you know, point, I think.
Exactly. And we never have all the answers. I feel like the eternal student. Every day I'm learning something new. And it is about being humble enough to say, I don't have all the answers. Can we have this expert to help us? Or can we have a consulting session with this field or with that person? Yeah, ask for help, ask for collaboration. We can't know everything. And we're in that era where knowledge is out there. You can pretty much learn how to fly a plane on YouTube, right? But so today's not about having the knowledge. It's about curating the right knowledge and asking the right questions. And this is why it's really important for people to go into different firms or different projects and ask questions. Why are we doing it the way it is? Why is this material not touching this material? Like, just be super curious, like the way you are. I feel like we all start as very curious human beings and very playful human beings, creative human beings. And then at some point they're like, shh, don't ask that. You're going to look stupid or you're going to look... Why? How is it even possible that we allow the system or whatever life transform it into a smaller versions of ourselves?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be this way.
I so agree. Maybe, you know, it comes from, I don't know, our upbringing when our parents didn't want us to bother other people. I don't know. And then we kind of carry it away through life. Don't bother other people. You know, I think it's super important, kind of like a habit. But yeah, you know, if for me personally, if a listener on the other side, you know, if you are considering a bigger project and you don't think you have everything that it takes to make it happen, well, you don't have to have it. You know, there are other people who can help you and the universe will provide once you start getting out there, stepping out and saying, I want to do this, right? That's been also my experience.
That's beautiful. Yes, 100%. I salute you.
So I think, Adi, we agree on so many aspects. And, you know, when I invited you to this podcast, I didn't do a lot of research, but I always trust the universe. You know, the universe is going to bring the right people to my podcast. And now I understand why. You know, there are so many points that we connect on and probably will even collaborate on, because I'm, again, all about that environment design. But let's step out of this, you know, architect and everything that we talked about and talk about you and your lifestyle, you know, as a digital nomad, as an architect. A few things. Maybe let's start with focus and productivity. A lot of digital nomads, you know, no matter what work they do, they struggle with like that focus. How do you spend time in different places, locations, country, and still maintain the focus on your work, like your productivity? How do you get things done when, you know, so many things in your environment are either distracting you or making your work a little bit more challenging? Like, what are some of your, you know, tips, recipes, tools, things you learned?
Yes. Okay, I have a lot to share there. So first of all, I'd say I'm a slow mad. I do not like to be 3 times a week at the airport, especially not in this summer. It's quite hectic. But it's really not about the number of countries I've been to. It's more about the numbers of countries where I felt at home. And for that reason, I always try to stay in apartments. I'll try to pretend I'm a local, to take life really slow. And then if you know that you have at least 1 month in a place, or 2 or 3 or 6, up to you, right? You're not in such a rush. The FOMO is not so big. to I have to see everything right now because I'm going to leave in 3 days and da 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 da. So allow yourself time. Allow yourself to really experience a place, to really live in a different culture, not like to emerge in it, because this is what we're all seeking at the end of the day. We don't want to just check the boxes of the sightseeing and be a friend told me the other day, there is the do people and the did you do this and that, have you done, like you don't do places, you live in places, right? So this is the difference between being a tourist and a traveler. And I want to believe that nomads are more similar to the traveler type, who's actually taking real interest in the places that you're in. So first of all, take it slow. You don't have to rush anywhere. You have a lifetime, and it's better to know one city than to spend one day in 10 cities. It's just ridiculous. The second thing that I want to say is that we've been programmed to work a certain way. For example, I am more of an night owl. I'm in the morning, I'm really slow. I need to do my yoga and my meditation and have my coffee and read something inspiring. The worst thing for me when I wake up is to open my laptop and start replying to stuff. No, this is horrible. So it took me a while to learn my focus hours and to understand what flow is and to allow myself to access it. So I think we're all wired differently. Some people, they're really, waking up in 5 a.m., it's the best idea for them. So allow yourself this freedom to explore. When do you feel fresh? When do you feel inspired? When do you feel like working for 3 hours now will be equals 1 week of work when you're distracted, right? So to learn how to ride those waves of focus and awareness and being mindful, turning off your phone, obviously, if you don't have to use it while you're working. And also to choose the tasks that is, let's say I have 10 different tasks that I want to do this week. What do I feel like doing right now? Maybe I can choose something that is very aligned to what I feel right now. Is it more technical? Is it more brainstorming? Do I feel very communicative? Maybe it's time for me to write a talk. So really, it's about knowing yourself and how to kind of like make yourself and the reality meet in the best possible way, how to align yourself and whatever work is asking you to do today. And then you learn that you don't have to work for 10 hours a day. You actually have to work much less if you're totally focused and committed to what you're doing.
That is such a great advice. I can be talking about that for hours. Like, find your best hours, right? And also see when, like, on what day you feel like doing some kind of work more than other kind of work, right? Especially if people have the flexibility. Sometimes people don't. Like, let me give people some advice if you have any. Like, if you don't feel like doing some kind of work, but you need to, like, this is the time you need to deliver. Do you have any advice for that?
Sure. There are different hacks to make us feel more motivated and to access more our focused mode more easily. One of them would be go on a 15 minutes walk or dance for 10 minutes and then sit down and do it, or have a deadline. Deadlines are great. We get so productive around deadlines, right? We're like, okay, I gotta get this done by 6 a.m. So we can, or another thing that really works for me is going to co-working spaces or to have accountability in certain tasks that I have, but maybe it's not in my top priority, but in the long run, it's something that I want to do. So have people who are accountable for you and you're accountable for them. And then just create that commitment between you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. These are great tips, deadlines, commitments, and also walking, movement in general. Yes. That's what I wanted to say. That's such a, well, from neuroscience perspective, that's what I do also. It starts your dopamine. That is the molecule of motivation of, getting things done. So movement is so amazing. And I'm so glad that you mentioned it. And dancing, especially, right?
Yeah, dancing is amazing. But seriously, I've seen some fMRIs of how our brain looks when we're after we sat at a desk or after we walked for, let's say, 15 minutes. It's insane the amount of connections that you can see there. We are not wired to sit still.
Yes.
We're not wired to be behind the desk for 10 hours a day. This is just wrong for us, for our bodies, for the way, for our cognitive function. We have to be moving.
Yes, all the time. That's we're designed to move, and more research supports that. Brain is just a machine to kind of was designed or evolved to accommodate movement. So yeah, I'm all, for movement. And also I think what a lot of people need to hear, just make it a part of your routine. Don't just wait for a workout or whatever. Whenever you feel like you're stuck or something, just start moving in whichever way is possible. And usually things and thoughts starts flowing after that, right?
Exactly. If you think, when do you have the best ideas? It's never when you sit in front of a blank page or screen. It's when you're doing the dishes. It's when you're in the shower. It's when you're driving. So we have to allow ourselves those times. We're also very much addicted to being busy all the time.
Yeah.
It's very important to get bored once in a while, to do something that is not active, to allow the subconscious to throw ideas at us and then to work with us, because this is part of how we're operating. We have the input mode and we have the output mode. But if we're always in input mode, we're not going to have any outputs.
Yes.
You can't listen to 5 different podcasts in 2x speed at all times and just, think that this is how it's going to work for you. We really have, the great philosophers and the great dreamers, they were expert in daydreaming. They were expert in walking around and doing to be in their bodies and to be in the present moment. And then and this is where original thoughts come from.
Yes. I couldn't sign up more under that.
Okay, let's start the movement. Yay.
Yes, movement. So obviously, movement is important for your mind. You already noticed that, know that, and read. I have a feeling a lot about that. And that's probably, one of the things that helps you to also maintain high level of energy and physical health. What are some other health related things that you do to maintain, high level of productivity and also to have all the energy to explore the world? It can be, things you do for nutrition, for maybe sleep, for any health related stuff that you can think of.
Okay, so I'm going to give you one unusual and one that is more usual. Okay. So the unusual one is I don't stay in ugly places.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start with that. Okay. So, when you walk into a place, we have two responses to anything in life, really, to people, to food, to places. The first one is avoid. I don't want to be here. I feel contracted. I want to get out of here. I'm not sure why this place doesn't work for me. I'm going away. And the other one is attract. This is giving me pleasure. This looks delicious. This person looks interesting. I want to approach it. I want to be close to it. So same goes with places, with architecture, with streets, with cities. When you go to a new city and you want to decide which street to walk, let's say you're just going on this exploration, you don't have a destination today. How do you choose which street to walk? Or how do you choose which apartment to book or where to stay? Or even if you walk inside a restaurant, where do you choose to sit? These are all things that are embedded in our neurobiology and affect us. So whenever we're in a place where we feel rested, where we feel happy, where it's aligned with our patterns, with our evolutionary patterns, we perform better. So be very wise, nomads or remote workers. We have this incredible freedom to choose where to live, to choose where to work. You can adjust the kind of work that you do to different spaces and different qualities of spaces. For example, the height of the ceiling can really affect the way we think.
Yeah.
It's insane. This is mind-blowing information that no one is talking about. So higher ceilings will make you think in a more abstract and creative way, and while lower ceiling will make you feel in a more analytic and detailed way. So, sometimes when you're wearing a hoodie, and you put it over your head. This is another way to make the ceiling lower if you want to focus more.
Yeah.
So choose wisely. If you want to brainstorm, don't do that in a space that has lower ceilings. Go somewhere where you feel, go to a library, sit somewhere that has huge arches or something that you feel in your body that it's good for you. So this is one tip. And the other one for well-being, I'd say, have a ritual. So when everything changes all the time around me, around us, it's really important to find from within what are the things that works for you, that makes you feel at home, that brings you back to your body, to your center. For me, it's my morning ritual, it's my morning yoga meditation. But sometimes it's just walking in the street, just walking outdoor for an hour in the morning with music, just walk, starts my day completely different.
Just because we're on the subject, any specific meditation that you do, or because people are always, interested in details, especially if people who are thinking about starting things like meditation, like, do you have any specific tools?
Okay, so I've been practicing yoga and meditation since I was 17. I grew up in a fairly hippie home. My mom, she was so smart. When I got my driver's license, she only would let me take the car if I go to yoga class. So this is how I became addicted to it. So I do different kind of meditations. Normally I'll just do silent meditation, just try and concentrate on your breathing. But sometimes when I feel my mind just swirling, going everywhere, I'll do something that is more about focus, like mantras or breathing exercises, and then I'll go into meditation. It's always good to try different guided meditations. A friend introduced me to Tony Robbins priming meditation.
Priming. I do it every day.
Oh my God. You do it every day? You're my hero. I do it every week. I do it once a week because I really love it, but it's a bit long. Well, it depends how much you want to spend.
How long do you meditate?
I'm committed to 10 minutes a day. If I do more, that's great, but this is the minimum.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you want to, I can share, and also I'm going to share it with listeners. I have 14 and a half actually minutes of Tony Robbins priming, and it's on YouTube. So it's not that longer. I don't know if you have the same one or a longer one.
Yeah, sure. Share it it's always good in the show notes to have things and resources. That's
thank you for sharing that morning routine. Is there anything else? But first of all, I wanted to mention that, about space, don't stay in ugly spaces. I can so agree. Like, if my place doesn't have enough light, I cannot live there. I cannot do any work there. Like, it is not possible. And also, when my place has a view, like, that is a real amazing thing for me, that I can go on the balcony and just see like amazing view. It just changes the way I think instantly.
And these are really good tips, because it's just aligned with the way we evolved. This goes to a pattern that calls prospect and refuge theory. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, so because of the way we evolved and the animals that we are, actually being somewhere where we feel protected from above and behind and overlooking a distant view is one of the best let's say patterns that we can imagine, because when you think about it, we can look for different resources or be aware of potential threats. So in our neurobiology, when we experience something like this, right, we're protected, but we can see far into the landscape around us. This is like, okay, you're safe. And your body just responds to it in so many different ways. Your heart rate and your blood pressure and your autoimmune system, your hormones levels. It's just like, it's mind-blowing. So yes, viewpoints, yes, to places that has decent views. And also, this is also why we like tall men, because we like to feel protected from above and behind. But it's not about the act. Yeah, it's just a feeling, right, that we crave subconsciously.
Yes, you're speaking my language, so I still love it. I actually wrote about that in my, book, Fit and Focused. It's cathedral effect. That's what I call it. I think I heard some neuroscientists call it that way, when you have like also, that like taller ceilings or open view.
That's the one that describes how the height of the ceiling affect the way we think. So but also amazing. Like the optic field, and it actually matters if you're reading a book from, like, books are the size they are for a reason. Like, reading from a tiny tablet is not going to give you the same level of information as reading it from a page that is, well, book size.
Yes. Yeah. These things, small things, but they make a big difference. So,
exactly.
I think, the last point as a nutritionist, I'd like you to cover maybe a little bit, at least your nutrition. Like, do you have any specific guidelines or things you follow when you travel to make sure that you feel good? Because I'm sure, you are such an intuitive person that you notice that some food make you feel better or do better and some foods don't. So what are some of your, I don't know, guidelines or principles that you follow in that area?
Sure. Okay. So growing up in Israel, I'm addicted to fruit and vegetables. So this is kind of easy for me. And I'm also a vegetarian. So that also affects the way I would say that I eat vegetables and cookies. This is my diet pretty much.
I'd say cookies also vegetables.
Of course. They grow in bushes now. Yeah. No, but seriously, it took me a while to stop forcing myself. Not forcing, but I was never drawn to eating breakfast. So for me, if I start my day with water and then an hour later I'll have coffee and then I'll just maybe have a little bit of fruit if I feel like it. But usually I just skip directly to lunch. And then I'll try to also eat quite light in the evening. So it's pretty much one meal a day. I'm trying to make it a good one. But yeah. And then when I heard about the intermediate fasting, I was like, I think I'm doing that for a few years, but I had no idea it's called this way. I'm just, I'm not feeling very hungry in the morning. So that's easy for me. But obviously I think we're all built in a different way.
Yes. Especially with timing and fasting, it's different for people. What do you put on your plate, out of curiosity when you do decide to eat? I personally like to put as much unprocessed foods as possible, as a main course, and I have specific guidelines as a nutritionist. What about you? Do you try to put specific vegetables or fruit or other foods? What does it usually look like? For example, your regular meal, if you'd say you have one.
I don't have regular everything, anything really, because I like to change. But let me think about that. Yeah, so being a slow mad, it's not only, I don't know if you're familiar with the slow movement, but in general, I'm a slow lover. So cooking from real ingredients, real food, and not just putting a microwave meal and calling this. This is not a solution for me. I'll always try to have something fresh, like a fresh salad, but it also depends where you are in the world. Let's say, trying to eat locally. In
Germany, what's go ahead, comfort food.
Oh my God, my comfort food is always Indian food. I don't know why, I just love Indian food. And in Germany, in Berlin, funny enough, Vietnamese food is incredible here.
Okay.
For vegetarians, I don't know. I haven't tried the famous sausages. Sorry, German guys.
Yes, yeah.
But I don't eat sausage. But
yes, I think that's amazing guideline. I think maybe because you're from Israel, I'm from Russia originally, and we have a really big culture around cooking and eating fresh foods, right? It's in the culture, that's the best, not going out and having fast microwave meal or something. And that's why, for me, cooking has always been a part of my life, no matter where I go. And that makes things easier. So I guess that's for you. You seem like you sound like a person who's cooking, who likes to cook a lot.
Well, it depends. I like it better when I have someone to cook too. Okay. So always when I have friends somewhere, I was invite everyone to a big Israeli brunch. But I also like to eat out. I like to see what's the local food is like. I like to eat street food if I can. But I'll always have in my home, the basics to have at least, a brunch. Some eggs and cheese and fruit and obviously wine. Which is also really important. But I always have vegetables and different snacks.
Okay, this is already a lot, of healthy stuff, fruit, vegetables, they say, that's what the data shows. People who eat a lot of that every day, fruit and vegetables, they are usually pretty good on all the health fronts as well. So Yeah, thank you for sharing this and,
Sure,
emphasizing
you're
this, and also the
welcome.
cooking part and freshness. So Adi, yeah, I'm going to be mindful of your time. I could
Oh,
talk to
thank
you
you.
forever. We have so many things, that we have in common, and lifestyle, and just view on life philosophy. But yeah, thank you for sharing so much of your time, your expertise, your experience. The last part, of the podcast is where you'd like people to go to connect with you, with your work, learn about what you do in any way.
Okay, yeah, cool. That's a great question. So the best way to connect is the website. Our website is called The New Movement. It's thenewmvt.com. Or you can
And we're gonna
always
link it in the show
okay,
notes.
great. This is the best. And then you can always just reach out on Instagram. My account is nomad.architect.me. And there you also have a link with all the other links where you can reach out on LinkedIn, Facebook. Instagram is quite active. It's just always fun to hear from people. If something resonated with you, or if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. It's fun.
Yeah.
This is the magic of the internet. You put things out there and then you have no idea who is listening to it or what's going to happen next. I love it.
Yeah. You never know who you can help just by being yourself and sharing your message, right? So thank you. I think a lot of listeners understand that they can learn a lot from you, and you're a person who love sharing and connecting. So I encourage our listeners to check the links out, your socials and your website, and learn more. And of course, to just be inspired by this podcast and take the next step into their dream, their journey, however nomadic or fully or partially. So thank you, Adi, again for joining me today. It was amazing. Absolutely loved it, and wish you the most amazing day in Berlin.
Thanks, Angela. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.